Hey everybody, Tommy Marquez and Lauren Khalil here with another special edition of Talking Elite Fitness. Today we are recapping the final day of competition at TYR Wodapalooza SoCal. We are back at our Airbnb. The competition has just wrapped up. Sean Woodland isn't even here anymore. He is at the airport. He is hopping on a jet plane and heading home to his family. Yeah, a ton of stuff to talk about. An awesome final day, a ton of stuff to revisit, which we'll probably do later in the week. But first, as always, we want to say thank you and support our partners for the weekend, Box Basics. You can head over to shopboxbasics.com, and from now through September 28th, you can get 20% off everything in store. Shop Box Basics is one-stop shopping for all of your footwear needs. It doesn't matter whether it's Nike, Reebok, TYR, Strike Movement, even some brands you may not have heard of that are sneaky good. They have it there. They have gooder, they have apparel, they have gym equipment. Anything you need from now until September 28th, you can get 20% off. They have been a huge support of us in the show, helping us bring you this coverage around the clock at Wodapalooza and at live events. And supporting them supports us. So if you love the podcast, you love what we do, and you want to find ways to support us, go and showcase some love to our brand partners, especially because the crew over at Box Basics is world-class. Excellent customer service, excellent shipping. They will make sure that you are taken care of no matter what. So again, shopboxbasics.com, use code TEF for 20% off. Let's get to it. Sunday, it was all tied coming in. Before we dive into the specifics, Lauren, the first TYR Cup is all said and done. We had a lot of high hopes and expectations for this. Where do you think, at least in this early stages of getting to experience it all and the feelings are fresh in your mind, where do you think we kind of netted out?
I think that there are way more positives and highlights than maybe the little things that it's like, oh, I think this could be a great idea to make it bigger or build on the building blocks. But especially as you and I have spoken to some of the athletes and managers this weekend, the positive vibe for the athletes has been so overwhelming that I think that this is a great format that has interest for the athletes and fans. It can be repeatable and sustainable. Jeff Adler today spoke about how, his body doesn't feel totally torn up. He's not going to have to go home and take a week off before getting back to training. So I think that overall, this event is a huge win.
Yeah. It's funny. A few athletes said that. They're like, I feel good today. Maybe not at a couple of athletes who did one of the most horrendous tests I've ever seen today, but I think the total impact won't be as bad given what they were doing, and that's a little foreshadowing. But a lot of them said, I haven't really gotten to touch intensity in the way that I may have liked to if I was gearing up for Rogue, for example, because a lot of these athletes will be there. So it's nice to kind of touch that intensity just for a brief moment. In a format that's not going to crush me, and it gives me a little bit of a different style of feedback that I can take with in a very conducive manner and be like, okay, how did I feel getting my heart rate up for that little bit right there? Or was I able to sprint in this moment if I needed to? Or, you know what, coming off of a long break, these are some things that don't stay with me longer in terms of deterioration or falling off, like skill or other fitness component wise, which is awesome to see them looking at it that way on top of the effort that they put in. And I think part of it comes from the format of the events, and I think we should get into it there, because yesterday we came off and we said the events were formatted so much better, and so much of how they played out and the flow of them felt like this is what we were looking for. And I think it carried over to this morning, to the beach event, in a way that I don't think I anticipated happening, because there was a little mishap on timing. So we got to the event like a few seconds after the event actually started. But when we got there, it was like this choose your own adventure event where all hell kind of broke loose, but in a good way. And it kept me engaged the entire time trying to figure out who was actually leading, where were things going on, and how people were choosing to kind of, peel this onion, if you will.
Yeah, I think that having a format like that where it is choose your own adventure, but it's like if you choose your own adventure in a classic CrossFit style workout, the athletes still kind of know what to expect with not just the format, but the movements and the implements. All of it was basically unknown. And even we talk about it later, how Pat Vellner was orchestrating exactly how things went on. So to watch athletes and how they could keep their teams organized, I think was really cool.
Yeah, and we spoke to a bunch of them afterwards, and the mood was pretty tense and like pretty serious, like more serious than it had been on previous events and previous days, because this was the one that everyone felt like they weren't sure how it would go. They couldn't wrap their head around any sort of expectation. And with it being tied, they felt like this could kind of be the swing vote for the weekend, in being able to execute something. And there was a lot of tinkering and kind of mad scientist stuff going on behind the scenes. We spoke with the North American team, and Adam Neiffer stepped up in a big way.
Yeah.
Obviously he's been to the games 10 times on a team. He owns and runs the CrossFit Fort Vancouver team that's been a mainstay at the CrossFit Games in the Affiliate Cup side. They were Affiliate Cup champions back in 2010, multi-time podium finisher. In that regard, he was the head coach of Team USA at the Invitational back in the day. And so he's got some ideas around creative teamwork because he's kind of seen it all. And a lot of the athletes were like, yeah, he was a huge help. And we mentioned that in the days leading up to this, where the coaches were willing to lend a hand and everyone was willing to take a back seat to one another when appropriate to provide for the best of the team. And I think that was a huge help for Team North America. And we even saw athletes looking across and seeing what the other team was doing in real time to kind of pick out some strategies, because North America picked up a worm, gave it to Jeff Adler. They had the women's weight worms and the men's weight worms. And they gave the men's weight worm, I believe, to Jeff Adler. He was in the middle. 3 of them picked it up. Then the 2 guys dropped off the side and let it drape over him. And he walked it over himself, almost like a saggy yoke. That sounds... The saggy yoke sounds like some dive bar / breakfast place that's in like the hipster part of town. It's like you can get a really good eggs Benedict, but they make strong mimosas. That's what you get at the saggy yoke. That's the kind of mimosa that our girl Lauren here needs.
What is totally off topic. The drink.
Oh, the one that I got to create. So
yeah.
We were, a little punchy in the back in the press area at the games. I think was it the games?
Yeah.
And everybody's like, emotionally drained towards the end of the weekend. And I want to say,
it was Scotty.
Scotty Freeman was maybe
from Morning Chuckle.
He was trying to take a photo of me, and I moved, and he was like, "Oh, that's not in focus." I'm like, "Oh, you got yourself a blurry Mexican then," because he was, and he was like, "Blurry Mexican." I was like, and we both kind of looked at each other like, that sounds like a really good tequila drink. And so now it's going to be my mission for me, with some input from Scotty, to come up with the Blurry Mexican cocktail for all of our friends who enjoy adult beverages. But yeah, back to the saggy yolk. Brent Fikowski even saw what they were doing and was like, oh, if one athlete can carry a worm, I'm going to do it too. And he actually rainbowed the worm up, hiked it up, because in the sand you could do that and it would stay put. And he bent over, he bunched up the worm, got underneath it, and kind of back squatted it like that guy who goes too heavy at a Globo gym. And you're like, oh, I don't.
Scary.
Yeah, it's a little scary, but he got it up and, took care of it. And it was cool to see them looking over and being like, ooh, I should try that. I want some of that,
Well, and even yesterday when it was the D balls, we watched Tia run out to the floor, change him out, and Jeff Adler also runs out to the floor and is watching and literally mimicking what Tia was doing. And at first I was like, is Tia just trying to like get him riled up? Maybe she's not doing anything, just wants to see if he's copying her.
It?
Yeah. So I think that, like you said, what we saw this morning, it was really cool to see the back and forth and learning on the fly.
Yeah, and team, like, I'm gonna call him Team America. Not Team America World Police. Team North America like crushed that one. Mm-hmm. They did a great job, and it was really cool to see a lot of people. Where the auto object implements were, a lot of people were right there on top of them. So you had Adam Knifer, you had Shane over with the World Team, and Shane Orr, and everybody was like yelling at them, and there was like a lot of like, you go here, I got here, you go here, and it was so fast paced. And at the end, everyone was like, that was fun. That was really fun. And that was really cool to watch. And there was the buzz from yesterday was like alive again in the morning. And you don't always get that with like the I don't want to say off site, but the events that aren't part of like the main stage, which was really, really cool. And it gave North America a lead heading into the evening. 3 events in the evening, kind of setting the stage for this race and what we've seen before, going back and forth. And the first event was, how do I put this?
Quad killer.
I believe
the best thing I've seen.
I believe there was a show called the Ladies Man, which was a spoof on a SNL skit.
Yeah.
With longtime SNL cast member Tim Meadows. And he said, "Yeah, that is disgusting." And I don't remember why he said it. I just remember that quote. But that's what I was saying after that workout. If you didn't get to watch it live, or if you did, it was one male and one female from each team. Basically had to go out, volunteer as tribute to
3 nasty sprints.
To pay homage to the lactic gods. And the first one was 50 calories for time for the men, 40 calories for time for women on the Echo bike. Or maybe it was the assault bike. I'm not sure. I don't remember if it was the assault bike or the Echo bike. Then,
Echo, because I'm picturing what the screens look like.
Yep.
Yeah.
Then it was, you reset. I think it was a 5-minute cap reset with the transition. Obviously, men go, then women go. Then 50 bar-facing burpees for time on 2 different barbells. So you had to go 25 and 25. Men go, women go, reset. Then a 500-meter run for time on the assault runner. And
that was awesome.
I don't know what I was expecting, but when Dallin and Brent got on the bike the first time, it was like, oh no.
I was standing next to Kyle Rolfe, and he said, "You better watch this close because they're both going to go sub 40." And they got 38 seconds.
He was right. They tied at 38 seconds.
And he looks at me, he goes, "I know what I'm talking about."
Yeah, he does. Shout out Kyle Rolfe. Sneaky, smart, fit.
Yeah.
Awesome dude. Yeah, and even like the way Brent was, like his body language.
Oh, I've never seen him on an Echo bike whip himself side to side so much.
Which is great, and a continuation of the discussion we had in previous days about him like just throwing caution to the wind and sending it, right?
Yeah.
And he goes head to head and ties Dallin Pepper, who, depending on who you talk to, if you talk to Jason Hopper, he's the second best guy of the Echo bike. He's not the king. Maybe he is, but and you're like, yeah, they're not holding back on this one, and they buried themselves, and that's why I think the support crew, like the rest of the teammates being a support system, maybe paid the most dividends, maybe at least from like outside looking in, because
you have Justin, who's holding a bag of ice over Dallin.
Yep.
You have Team World with Brent's ice jacket, then wrapping it around him, zipping it up, giving him gummies and his drinks.
At one point, I looked to Marston, who was up in the stands, and I'm like, it looks like Dallin's getting a spa day treatment right now. He had like someone on his neck, on his head, his arms, his legs. They were like, taking his shoes off for him, and they like sold their soul, and then they got right back. Gracie Walton and Emily Rolfe go. Emily Rolfe wins by like a 4 or 5 seconds, maybe 6 seconds. And it was close. It was like back and forth. They were announcing out the calories, and they kind of jockeyed back and forth. And Emily got the win on the bike. They move over to the bar.
Gracie won on the bike. Gracie won on the bike.
You're right. It flip-flopped. Yep.
But because since I was next to Kyle, he was saying that was really good for Emily.
Oh, good.
So he was very impressed and happy with that.
Nice. Especially because you knew, like, typically speaking, I think the sentiment was you have the run looming on the at the end, and that's typically where Emily shines. Mm-hmm. But you get to the bar facing burpees. Dallon's great at them. Brent just couldn't hold pace, right? Like, he was there for a long time. He had one slip up where he clipped the bar, and that's where Dallon started to separate a little bit. And they both got done with the last burpee, and I was like, I don't know how they're going to get up to run.
Somehow they did.
Yeah, they were rolling around on the floor like a toddler having a tantrum at a
before it was over, when they still had to run a 500.
Yeah, and they like up, come up, pick them up, like up, wheel them off, like off to the side. The girls got to go now. And I actually thought, and this was, I think, the maybe one of the impressive things from Emily is her beating Grace on the bar facing burpees. Mm-hmm. Now, remember, Grace Walton had one of the best scores in the world on the burpee over the dumbbell snatch.
Good point. Open workout.
Open workouts. And her proficiency with both of those movements is very, very good. And a lot of people were like, yeah, this is really good for Grace. And Emily hung tough. And I think she let Grace get a little bit out in front early and kind of found where her rhythm was and didn't like redline too quick and reeled her in and beat her. She got a no rep at the end that narrowed the actual margin of victory for her, but it gave her enough to make up some time and essentially hold court for the lead that Dallon had built. And they go over to the runner, and Dallon and Brent again like sold out on the run. Brent was running like Forrest Gump on methamphetamine, and it was like you could tell there was everything left they had in their body.
Oh, because Dallon was unwell for well after the event ended.
I interviewed him afterwards, and he's sitting there talking to his wife, and he was, I've never felt this bad ever. I can't say I've ever felt like this.
Yeah, Emily said that was the worst that she's ever felt.
Yeah, and afterwards they had to get Grace and Emily get on the runner, and there's enough of a lead to where Emily just has to hang back. But I mean, obviously she's given it whatever she can. Grace, to her credit, ran like the wind.
Well, when you have Tia-Clair Toomey standing in front of you telling you to just keep going.
Oh, she was jumping and bouncing and like
that was awesome to watch.
And I asked Tia about that, and she was like, I don't know what got over. She was cackling, laughing. She's like, I don't know what got into me. I just was like, locked eyes. I'm like, you, me, we're here. I'm going to give you a distraction from the pain, and we're going to go. Like, what's that quote?
That's cool to see.
What's that quote from Step Brothers? He looked me in the eyes and he said, let's do this. Let's get it on. And she did great, but ultimately Team North America won. Mm-hmm. Brent, at one point, they did the post-game interview, and Dallon and Emily are sitting there on the chairs with Bella, and Dallon goes to drops a little smack. He goes, hey, I knew that even if Brent was going to tie me on that, on the bike, he would feel much worse after. And I looked and I was like, where's Brent at? And he was on all fours up against the video board in the corner.
Oh, too perfect.
Like certain animals and insects, if they're in a room and they're about to die, they crawl to the corner and die. It's like their way of giving up. Not saying that Brent was giving up, but that he was just looking for any place possible for relief. and he just like had crawled into the corner of the competition floor up against a video board and was just on all fours, like head down, like looked like he was dead. And like it was super exciting, and we rarely get to see these top athletes like fully redline like that. And yeah, it gave North America like a 2-point lead, and it basically forced, kind of a dormy situation, if anyone knows golf, on that next event, that chipper event with World on their heels. And I mean, everyone kind of knew after that, I think. Like, you figured that World could definitely win one of the next two, but winning both would be tough.
Yeah, and even just seeing what movements were left and which athletes were left, because, again, that's a huge part of the strategy, is figuring out, I mean, you weren't going to put Dell and Pepper in that workout after selling yourself off and that. So just like looking at how people are placed, I think most people looking at the rosters on who was left to do that workout, they knew that North America was going to be able to do it.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, the majority of the North America team, all of their athletes stayed ahead from everyone.
The North America team looked like, especially early on, like Adler came out. So it was the second to last event, 6 athletes from each team doing 2 separate 4-movement chippers of 21-15-9 with 2 minutes of rest in between. Females go, then men go. Women's side, you could tell that World was pressing, right? Tia comes out, just drops the hammer. She won by like a minute and a half over the next athlete, maybe even 2 minutes. But early on, Seher Kaya and Emma Tall were, trying to keep pace, and Emma, I think, just hit the wall and fell back, and I think she was the last athlete to finish on that one. Seher did a really good job of hanging tight for a long time, and for a good portion of the event, the World was 1-2. It was Tia and Seher, but ultimately, I think Danielle Brandon Danielle, Alexis Raptis, and Ariel Owen, as North America has done in some of these CrossFit style events, they have stayed together in this pack, and it allows them to kind of move together and push one another in a way that I think allowed all of them to have the most success. And a couple of them were able to pass Seher and put a little bit of pressure on Team World going into the men. I believe they had a 26-second advantage. And the men pressed again, like came out and had to press a little bit. Like Annual Kai came out fast. Guy came out fast. BKG was actually early. He was kind of close with them too, but you could tell for him,
it was going to be 2.
It's the long game.
Yeah.
Like, he's really good at pacing for the long game. He knows, like, me pressing at this point is going to be conducive. And ironically enough, he was the athlete that finished the highest amongst the world athletes overall in that event. But Jeff, similar to Tia, just came out and was like, nope, I'm going to showcase why I'm a champion. He won. He had the fastest time going away. Justin and Vellner hung close, and I think BKG was the second fastest time, but Medeiros and Vellner hung on BKG's hip and were the next 2 athletes, and that's kind of the advantage, right? They have to press, and we can kind of hang and see how the chips start to fall out, and then once Annual and Guy fell off, they were like, oh, we got this. We're good. And I think it was fitting that Vellner was the 3rd athlete from North America to cross the finish line, but he was the one that like sealed the deal with his finish, and that ultimately gave North America a 3-point lead, having won all the day's events, and it was over at that point. But we still got to see the captains one go, which was fun.
Yeah, which it was fun, and just having Tia and BKG, 2 phenomenal athletes, and the way that they work together, I think was also very interesting, especially just talking with the athletes and them saying that, a lot of the men know each other and a lot of the women know each other, but there's not a lot of time when they compete at these competitions to have interactions and get to know each other. So I think that those little relationships that you got to see through each team was really fun. And even though North America already had it in the bag, it still was a great final event and really cool to watch.
Oh yeah, and the way they had the assault runners face to face for the
MC was like interviewing DB while she was running.
Yeah, shout out Mike Richards. He was dropping some heat there at the end, and they were like, the assault runners were almost touching, so they're just like squaring off, looking at each other as they were running, and it was fun. It was fast, and Team World got the win. To close the gap, and maybe if anything, it was just for pride, and it was a nice. Even though the competition was technically in hand, it was still a fun way to end, and everyone just seemed in a really good spirits about it. And overall, I think it capped a great weekend of competition. And there was this sentiment that got shared to me from Tia around some athletes this weekend were unsure about their future in the sport. They weren't sure if they wanted to keep competing in CrossFit. And this weekend relit the fire and the passion for them. And she said to be a part of that, to have all of us together again, and to do this in this environment with these people in this kind of atmosphere was really therapeutic for a lot of them. And that's good to hear.
It is good to hear because, a lot is still happening and feelings and emotions are still raw. I mean, the games were only 2 months ago.
If that. A month and like 12 days.
That it's all still very fresh and new. And I'm really happy that the athletes were able to come out, have this experience, an experience that I think united a lot of the athletes and gave maybe a better appreciation for some of the other ones as well. And knowing that having a moment like this, having a weekend like this, reignites that passion and reminds them why they're doing it, I think is really cool.
No doubt. And the fan vote and MVP vote ultimately went to Pat Vellner, which was super cool as the captain. For North America, I think like if Team World had won, it would have very clearly been Tia. You had to give her the baton more often than not because she was running circles around people at times. But Pat was really collaborative. He, you could see the leadership mindset from him, and I think everybody was stoked for him, right? Like all the athletes were pumped for him. You could he started crying when it happened, when he got announced, and they named the award in honor of Lazar, and I think that's a fitting way to honor him because he would have been here and he would have. But they said he was the first person to respond off of the invite and be like, "Yes, I'm in."
He wanted to be a captain.
He wanted to be a captain. Our last conversation with him, our last full conversation with him, we interviewed him the night before. Everything transpired at the TYR house. The first thing he said to us when he came up was, "Am I the captain? Do you know? Do you know if I get to be the captain?" He was so pumped to be a part of it, and so to have that award in his honor and have it go to someone like Pat, it's just fitting. It was maybe I don't want to say poetic because it comes out of dire circumstances, but I think it was nice to have that little piece at least. So, but yeah, so now that we're all done, we're gonna chill out for a little bit. Lauren is hopping on a flight tonight.
Tonight.
It is like
in 4 hours.
Yeah.
By the time you listen to this, I'm probably almost there.
And so then we'll be back later on this week. We'll have a full recap. We'll also touch on the adaptive division CrossFit Games. The Wheel Wad is going on. Be sure to head over to Wheel Wad for all results and updates, and be sure to tune into that and show those athletes some love as well. I don't know about you. I'm gonna need to hibernate for a couple days. This was a lot of fun. Long hours. The late start times for the competition definitely took its toll.
Next year, let's do comp from like noon to 3.
Yeah,
it's also prime sun time.
We're both losing our voices from talking and I don't know, singing Yellow Card Oceans Avenue on the car rides back and forth.
So good.
Which is a requirement when you're in Southern California on the beach. But yes, so we'll still have some stuff coming out from the week. We'll have some highlights, some videos, some more stuff trickling out. And of course, we want to say thank you one last time for Box Basics and their support of this. Again, can't stress this enough. They do great work in supporting the community with high quality products, all the best brands, and doing so the right way. If you guys want to get on this deal, 20% off, TEF, shopboxbasics.com. Go get you some new swag as we kind of reset the calendar for Rogue. And then, big thanks to everyone that we talked to this weekend. We got to spend a lot of time with members of the community, volunteers, judges, equipment people, fans, who were all just pumped to be here as well.
Great people.
It definitely lifted us up, and it was another shining piece of what was a really fun weekend. So for Lauren Khalil, I'm Tommy Marquez. As Sean always says, since he's not here to do it himself, take care of each other, be better, and we'll talk to you guys soon.